So joining me on
No,
the
thanks for.
hello, oh, he's here. I'm really excited. It's Mr. Jon Courtenay, and I got to say, it must be a whirlwind for you at the minute because, I mean, what a crazy month winning Britain's Got Talent. So, how is everything going? You must be kind of exhausted, but excited.
Yeah, exhausted is a good word. It's all good. I mean, even though this year obviously BGT took longer than any other year, it was the whole process was spread out over much longer. Um, it actually happens overnight at the finals. I mean, especially if you win it, it goes immediately afterwards. It starts going crazy, and I wasn't quite prepared for it. I thought I was, but I wasn't really. So I've probably taken on too much. I'm trying to get involved with as much stuff as possible, and it's a little bit overwhelming. But most of it's from home, of course, at the moment, so that's quite nice.
Yeah.
I'm not charging all over the country doing stuff. I'm doing it all from my studio, which is kind of cool. So yeah, but busy. It's great.
I mean, going back to the beginning of the year, obviously auditioning for the show, what was it for you at that time that made you feel, do you know what, this is the right time to audition for the show? What was it that kind of made you think, I'm ready to do this?
Um, I don't know if I was. I've watched it every year. I mean, I've always watched it. I've had friends that have gone on it or auditioned for it. Britain's Got Talent and America's Got Talent, and they'd all pretty much had positive experiences and told me it was a great experience. But I always had an excuse not to do it. I was quite lucky because I was busy. I was doing a lot of cruise work on a lot of cruise ships. I was away a lot, but my diary was full. So one of my excuses was I just haven't got the time to take time off to do it. The other thing was I've never done. I mean, I did a talent show when I was like 20 years old in Essex somewhere, and I won that. But that was doing a comedy magic act. It was very different to what I'm doing these days.
Yeah.
And my other reason for not doing it before was I didn't know what I'd do. My stage show is like an hour long, but it's got like a beginning and a middle and an end. And I didn't feel I could take something out of that show that would stand by itself for like 3 minutes. So I had a lot of excuses. And then a friend of mine saw my show, and we'd known each other 20 years, but he hadn't seen my show for a long time. And he came backstage after the show and he said, why don't you do Britain's Got Talent? He said it's such a huge platform. You know, you'll get some, maybe get some couple of good corporate gigs out of it or something. I said, yeah, that's great, but what would I do? And he said, well, why don't you write a song about going on Britain's Got Talent? Because in my stage show, there's a few songs I make stuff up, and there's a few songs about stuff, life, that I've written. And he said, you should just write a song about doing Britain's Got Talent, make it about like the here and now. And I thought it was a cool idea. I said, it'd be great if I can come up with something. So I went back to my room that night and wrote it really quickly. It all came out very, very quick. I mean, it got tweaked a lot over the next sort of couple of months, but the basic idea of the song. And once I had something I was happy with, that I was sort of quite excited about doing, that had been custom written, I thought maybe now's the time. So I came home and saw my family and said, hey, guess what? I'm going to do Britain's Got Talent. And they all went, yeah, all right. And then carried on whatever they were doing. And I said, no, really, I'm going to do Britain's Got Talent. And this is the song. And I played them the song and they went, wow, that's actually pretty good. Yeah. So that's how it started.
You know, the amazing thing about you, remembering your audition, there's no one I've ever seen on that show that is remotely similar to you, because you had me laughing, but then you had me crying, because you've got this way of adding that comedy effect, but also you're so relatable. And it was to see your children in the audience as well. I've never in my life seen children look at their father the way that they looked at you, with so much pride. How did that make you feel when you watch it back, especially your younger son when he got emotional? That was so kind of touching to
Yeah.
watch.
Well, I mean, I've got goosebumps now because obviously when I filmed it, I didn't see any of that. I mean, it was my whole idea of the other reason for auditioning was I just wanted to do the Palladium. I wanted to perform at the Palladium. It's such an iconic theatre for variety performers, for any performer. And I live near Manchester, so when I was going to audition, BGT said, "Well, obviously you want to audition at the Lowry in Salford." And I said, no, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do the Palladium. At least if I get buzzed off, I can say I've done the Palladium.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, live theatre, live audience. Remember those days? God. So, you know, I couldn't see the audience. I didn't even know where my family was sitting. So I watched it when it was broadcast and saw that for the first time. And it knocked me for six. I mean, it was, you know, we're a very close family. I know my kids are proud of me, but I had no idea that they were that. To be honest, a couple of those shots of Alfie, I probably shouldn't tell you this. We got to the theatre at 10 in the morning and I went on stage at 11:15 at night. We had over 12 hours just hanging around, you know, doing the little interviews and stuff that they do backstage. And my younger son was so knackered. Some of those shots where he looks he's emotional, he's just tired. There's a couple of shots where he's rubbing his eyes and they filmed it like he's crying. But I know my son. He was. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was quite emotional as well. But yeah, so some of those shots he was just tired. But yeah, it was amazing to see it back. Really emotional to watch it back. Yeah.
You know, I do want to ask you a lot more about Britain's Got Talent, but I do want to go back to the very beginning for you, which is kind of when you were growing up. Listening to the songs that you performed, it seems that you actually came from a showbiz background in the sense of your parents. Did they work in the industry?
They did. They were never full-time professional entertainers. That they always had proper jobs, but they were very good at what they did. I think it was just the security. You know, this is such a difficult business to make it in, to support a family, and they both had steady, regular jobs with pensions. But my mum was in amateur dramatics growing up, and she was amazing. I'm not just saying that because she was my mum, but she was always the lead. She was the person that was always the star of the show. And I remember going to see her I went to see her in Annie Get Your Gun. She was playing Annie in Annie Get Your Gun. And I was probably about 5 or 6 years old. One of my earliest memories, my dad took me. And they were both involved in a thing called Barrington's Music Hall as well, which was great to see. My dad used to be the guy in the tailcoat and the gavel. Ladies and gentlemen, for your delectation and entertainment pleasure, all that sort of stuff. That was Dad. And I remember going to see Annie Get Your Gun, and I don't know if you know the story of Annie Get Your Gun, but Buffalo Bill, Annie falls in love with Buffalo Bill, and Buffalo Bill spurns her advances and breaks her heart. And Dad took me backstage after the show, and I walked directly up to Buffalo Bill and kicked him in the shins because he'd upset my mum. It didn't occur to me that I was holding my dad's hand and he was married to my mum. For me, that show was completely real. But that was the first time that I remember being backstage, and I can still picture looking through the wings of the theatre out to the empty audience, everybody had gone by then, into the theatre audience, and feeling this huge excitement, this huge buzz. Which I still try and keep hold of to this day, no matter, whatever theatre or stage I'm about to walk out on. I just take a moment to look through the wings at the audience and just remember that feeling as a kid of being in that privileged position of about to walk out and perform, and it still gives me goosebumps now, probably because I haven't done it for 8 months.
What do you think your dad would say about what you're doing and what you've achieved?
I don't know. I mean, that's the only bittersweet thing, really. Just to see me at the Palladium, he would have been bursting with pride. He would have been there, that he would totally have come to the theatre and sat in the audience. And he'd be very proud. I mean, my dad was. I was very close to my dad and close to my mum now. But my dad was a typical dad in that he didn't gush praise. He didn't. My mum did. My mum was always, "Oh, you're fantastic." But Dad was sort of quite stoic and he'd say, "Well done." And a couple of times when he did sort of say to me, "I'm proud of you, son," it meant so much because I knew he was proud of me. He told everybody else. My mum would tell me that, he'd be speaking to friends and family and saying how great it was, but he didn't say it to me that often. So when he did, it was really powerful. So yeah, I think that would have been one of those nights when he gave me a hug and just said, "Bloody proud of you, son," So yeah.
Do you think he would sometimes not praise you direct in a way to kind of drive you forward to earn that praise as a bit of motivation?
Possibly. I don't know. It used to drive my mum nuts because they'd have dinner parties, in like the 80s when people had dinner parties and stuff, and we'd have friends and family over, and I'd be sent to bed at some point, and then the next day mum would say, your dad spent the rest of the evening saying how proud he was of you and whatever you were doing and stuff, and I was like, well, he doesn't tell me. But I knew I knew he was. Yeah.
And I think the British audience are really intelligent. When we watch TV shows, we know kind of when to believe something. And often on talent shows, you see people say, "This is my dream. I've always dreamt for this moment." But with you, we all believed it, and we do believe it because you could just see how much it meant. The Palladium, the story behind it, you really wanted to feel that, and that's what I think the audience connected to you, and especially Ant and Dec, because. We'll go on to them, obviously, giving you the golden buzzer, but they got really emotional. And there was something about you that just, you would look in their eyes and they just welled up. So let's go back to when they ran out and pressed their golden buzzer. Can you remember how you felt? Because I could see it in your eyes. You kind of knew what might be coming, but you weren't quite sure.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. I didn't see them come out because my son was on stage with me by then. He'd run up on stage. So I didn't see them when they come out, but Nathan did. So Nathan just suddenly started shouting, Dad, you've done it. And I didn't know what he was shouting about. And then I saw Ant and Dec. And I remember my first thought being something's gone wrong, because when they're recording the show, if things do go wrong or things need resetting, Ant and Dec often come out and have a chat with the audience and to kill some time, Right. And you don't see that broadcast, but that's part of their job as hosts of the show, like any compere would do. So my first thought was something's gone wrong, and they're rushing out to stop everything to, and then it took it is quite slow motion, because they've got a long way to go as well. When the judges do it, the buzzer's right in front of them. But with Ant and Dec, they have to run across the stage, down the steps, back up to the judge's desk, so there's a long time to process it and start thinking what's going on. So yeah, there's one shot. I watched it back a couple of days ago, actually, for the first time in a long time. And there's one moment where I think I put my hand over or shook my head or something, because it dawned on me what they're about to do, and I just couldn't quite believe it. At that point, I remember just before they came out, it had always been a dream to be at the Palladium. So walking out onto that stage was emotional. It really was. And, that's not... And my wife asked me, she said, when you said it's overwhelming and your voice cracked, did you plan that? And I went, no, I can't be that insincere. I said, I was feeling that emotional, and my voice went slightly. So I was feeling that. And then I was nervous about the song, because it was an original song that I'd never done before. So the fact that the song went so well and the audience loved it and laughed in all the right places, and then the judges stood up. So now I'm stood there on the Palladium with a standing ovation, people cheering. And I remember just thinking, this is it. I'm happy now. It doesn't get any better than this. And that's when Ant and Dec came out and pushed the buzzer, and it did get better, and it was insane.
And obviously you went straight through to the semi-finals. And a lot of times when you have someone with such a good audition, you kind of think, are they going to deliver in the semi-finals? And you did. The song, you just changed it around from you as a dad to actually you being the child, and you talked about your parents. So I wanted to talk about the process when it comes to writing a song. Do you just kind of get a bit of a melody and record it on your phone? Like, how do you write these songs? So kind of they're great.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't really know if I've got an answer. I've been asked that a couple of times, and I think you ask anybody that creates anything where the inspiration comes from, and we don't know, really. I don't have a process for finding inspiration. I don't think you can do that. Quite often when I've written songs before, I have an idea or something funny happens, and I think that would be funny in a song, or I've got a reason for writing it. Every year I write a song for my wife for Christmas, so she gets a Christmas song on Christmas Eve, and I record it for her. They're normally funny and about stuff that's happened that year within the family. So I know I'm going to do that. I have an objective. So I think with BGT, writing the first song, obviously that was an easy objective. It was about doing BGT. And then I wanted to just sort of pay a little tribute to my mum and dad, really. I sat down with a blank piece of paper like I normally do and thought, this is a big deal. This is going to be the performance of my lifetime. I have to try and get to the finals. So blank piece of paper, and I had a bunch of different ideas. I did write a whole other song actually for the semi-finals, which we couldn't do because I wrote it before the virus hit. As soon as I got the golden buzzer, which was in January, even though it wasn't broadcast till April, the actual audition was in January. So I immediately went home and started writing ideas for the semi-finals, and I wrote still what I think is one of the best things I've ever written, which is going to go in my tour. It's going to go in my show on tour, because a friend of mine, just after we'd recorded it, I fell down some steps, and my friend caught me and sort of saved me. And he said, don't die. That would be a real waste of the golden buzzer. So we started laughing, and then we had a few drinks. And while we were having drinks, we couldn't get this out of our head. And we came up with this little jaunty song called I Must Not Die. And it was all about how I could really screw up this big opportunity that I'd been given, and all the things that could go wrong. And the worst thing would be I die. I was like, so I wrote this, and it was a big production number with dancers, and there was stuff coming out of the ceiling, and I must not die. I was this stupid song. And I was so pleased with it. It's not very often that I write a song and go, yes, this is funny, and it's out there. It's my sense of humor. And then of course the virus struck, and got worse and worse and worse, and people started dying. So obviously, I played it to a friend of mine, and I said, look, I've written this song, but I don't think I can do it anymore. And I played it for him, and he said, "God, no." He said, "There are, there are people dying.
Yeah.
There are people properly. You can't go out on stage on national television and sing." There was even a line in the song called "I mustn't catch a disease without a cure." So,
Oh.
obviously, terrible taste, and no way it could be done. And I didn't. So that had to get scrapped, which I was very upset about because it was a funny song. So then I sat down again and had to come up with another idea. So yeah, I think I thought of doing a tribute to my mum and dad because they're in the business, and having some pictures of them because I've got all these old black and white pictures of mum and dad.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe if I did a song, and as a tribute to my parents, that could. And then of course you got to try and make that funny as well, because I always come from a place of comedy. People keep telling me since this happened, "Oh, you made me cry so much," and I'm like, I really want to make you laugh. I really want, but everybody's crying.
You made me laugh when you mentioned Simon Cowell and the bike. I thought that was genius to get that in there as well. But again, it was scenes when you put your mum on the video screen. Things like that, because we're getting to really know you, and that's the amazing thing about your act, because none of us knew you before your audition, but we want to know more. And when you're talking about you as a dad, you as a child, and then we get to see your mum, it's amazing how you've got us so in tune with you. And I don't know how you've done that. It's just amazing. You've got this way of connecting with an audience I don't think I've ever seen an act do on Britain's Got Talent. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Definitely. So going to the final, this was what I loved. It's probably my favourite performance you did, because you just captured the essence of what we've all been through as a nation with COVID. The NHS, so Captain Tom Moore, and just everything we've been to and how much family meant. And I think it was just great. Were you the final act in the final, if I remember?
I was, yeah.
And it was just to finish the whole show with what you did, it was just amazing, and you so deserve to win. So when it was announced that you became the first Golden Buzzer winner, how did you feel? Because you had some great competition either side of you.
Yeah, it was crazy. It really. I mean, I watched it back, and I don't remember falling to my knees. It was that wasn't a theatrical thing. It was. I would have been quite happy coming second. I mean, that was so much further. Literally, I mean, I joked to Ant and Dec. I said, I'm only here because I wanted to be at the Palladium, because I wanted to perform at the Palladium. So to get the Golden Buzzer, and then to get the judges' pick, which put me straight through to the finals as well. I mean, as far as BGT experiences go, mine was pretty much up there. It didn't get a lot better than the buzzer, and then the judges' pick, and then to win it. So. Yeah, it was completely overwhelming. In my head, I was going second place, especially to sign along with us. I mean, there's such an amazing group of kids. Jade, the girl that put it together, she's a remarkable girl. I got to know her quite well. We were all at the same hotel together, and I got to have a good chat with her and her family. A remarkable girl, really remarkable, and that what she's done there is fantastic. So I'm stood there thinking, second's fine. Don't get me wrong, the raw variety would be amazing. The money, I haven't worked since March. I really needed the money. But as far as the competition goes, second place would have been okay. So I was just waiting to hear the winner is. And that pause, by the way, when you're watching it, if you think that pause is long when you're watching it, try standing up there. Oh my God, it's like, part of me is just going, just say it for God's sake. Well, you're killing me. I was getting dizzy. I was starting to hyperventilate a little. I thought, if I pass out, it's going to go viral, no problem. So, and then they said, Jon, I heard the J of Jon Courtenay, and yeah, incredible.
And you seem like a humble guy, so you probably don't necessarily, not saying you don't care about it, but the percentage that you won by was impressive, because you look at, there was such a big gap. So again, did you look at that when you did see that being revealed? Did part of you think, wow, like the audience must have really invested into what I do, because it's such a landslide victory?
Yeah, again, I keep using the word overwhelmed, but everything, I mean, in the best possible sense of the word, the whole experience has been great, so positive. I mean, from the day of the audition, the whole process has been, everybody that works on the show is just lovely. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to be manipulated a little bit. I was expecting people to be a bit, who do you think you are? That kind of, everybody was lovely. I can't fault it. And I'm not contracted to say that. They were just lovely, everybody. So the whole experience had been amazing. And then I didn't write anything that I wrote for the show to win a competition. And I've tried to explain this to people. It's a really hard thing to explain. I think if I sat down with a blank piece of paper with the idea of writing a song to win a competition, I'd write a very different song. I had to write from the heart, and the objective honestly wasn't to win a competition. The objective was to write a good song that would stand the test of time and people would relate to. And yes, obviously, if that makes people vote and stuff, that's in the back of your mind. But I do want to touch people. I want people to feel. I want people to laugh. I want people to cry happy tears. I want people to feel good. I want people to be happy. And that's why I wrote the songs. So I think a lot of the contestants felt this way. We didn't feel like we were in a competition. We felt like we were part of a variety show. We all got to know each other really well. You know, it's that lovely feeling of camaraderie. There wasn't a feeling of competing against each other, which was lovely. So yeah, to read that percentage thing. I mean, my tour manager was over the moon because we're booking a tour for next year, and he's like, "Oh, you're going to sell the tour out, 35% or whatever it was, you'll be." So that's exciting in itself, the fact that I'm actually going to get to tour. But yeah, I mean, those statistics were just crazy.
I mean, just before we talk about the tour, I want to talk about the Royal Variety performance, because you literally define Royal Variety, and I think the fact that we're going to get to see you on stage, and it's going to be amazing because the royal family will get to see you do your thing. And what can we expect from you? Because it's been a tough year. We're in lockdown again, which is really tough for us. So what can we expect? Because knowing you're going to do something that just captures the nation.
Well, yeah, I've written it. I'm sworn to secrecy. All the details about the show, we are sworn to secrecy about it, so I can't tell you too much. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. Yeah, I've written something different. I'm not sure. I think what I did in the finals, like you say, I did try to tap into what everybody had shared and could relate to. I think as a comedian, you're always trying to do that. Jokes are funnier if people go, "Oh yeah," and they can relate to it straight away. So you're always trying to do that. So I think having done that with the finals, I couldn't have the same idea, if you like, for the Royal Variety, because I've done that. I am doing a little recap of my final song at the end of the performance. There's a little bit of a recap of just the same song. Just as a recap, basically, because that sort of catches you. So I can tell you that, but the actual song that I'm doing is a completely different idea. Yeah, can't tell you anything else. I'm very excited about it though.
Well, I'm looking forward to your tour, because I'm definitely going to get tickets, because we only see a snippet of I guess what you do. We saw 3-4 minutes for each performance. So what can we expect when you go on tour? Because we only see the music that you've done. So what things do you do? What can we expect? And tell us kind of some of the places that you're going to be visiting.
Well, the show, as I say, I've been doing a stage show for over 20 years now. And it was always about comedy. It was always about making people laugh and leave the theatre smiling and feeling happy. So that's always been my objective. That hasn't changed. So obviously all the BGT stuff, that's got to be in there. There's going to be a few stories from backstage and things that happened and that kind of stuff, because I think people like to hear that kind of stuff. But the bulk of the show is based on the show that I've been working on for 20 years. I mean, it always changes. I'm always tweaking it and writing stuff and trying to make new content and using different media to put stuff across, whether it's comedy or music. And there's some straight songs too. There's a probably a little tribute to Sammy Davis Jr. in there, because I'm a huge Sammy Davis fan. So I have a version of Mr. Bojangles, and we have a lovely slideshow of Sammy doing his thing, while I sing Mr. Bojangles. That's pretty cool. I love doing that. And some stories, some comedy bits that I've written over the years. It's I'm having to rewrite it, obviously, because it's a theatre show and it's going to have an interval. So there's 2 halves, which I haven't done before. My stage shows, I say, it's normally about an hour. So we're looking at the first half is probably about 50 minutes and the second half is probably like 40 minutes. So I am quite lucky in that I have got a show. It's going to be interesting because, like I say, people don't know what I do. They only know these 3 songs, really. And I haven't had any exposure in the UK, really. So they'll obviously be expecting the BGT stuff. And then luckily I have got a show that has been tried and tested, which I've only got to tweak slightly to take it out on the road. There's a lot of people that have been through this process and have come out the other end, and all of a sudden they're told they're going to tour and they have to write a show. which would scare the hell out of me. You know, 'cause these shows need to get bedded in. You need to find out what works, what doesn't work. So I've got that. So I'm really confident that it's going to be a fun show. Yeah.
How many dates have you got confirmed that you're going to be doing?
Actually, you know what? I don't know.
I know you're going all over, aren't you? There's going to be a good chance for people to see you because you are going.
Yeah, we really are going to try and cover the country. I mean, the thing is, it's not going to be till later in the year because all the shows this year that have been postponed are going into the theatres early next year. So it probably won't be until the autumn that but tickets are going on sale in the next week or two. So that will probably be when I find out where I'm going. My tour manager is working on it now. We've got the Lowry booked in because that's like just down the road for me now. The Lowry Theatre in Salford, which is a beautiful theatre. That's in January. I'm doing that on the 22nd of January. And that's just a 60-minute show, no interval, just to get out there and do it. So that's gonna be exciting. And then my hometown is Ipswich. I was sort of brought up there. My dad was born in Ipswich, and I went to a boarding school near there. So I was really keen to get my show, but I've got family still there. So we've got a date there in September. I'm doing a theatre, the Corn Exchange Theatre in Ipswich. But hopefully, I want to get to. I want to do the country. I mean, I said after my finals performance, they do all these interviews with you and you get cameras shoved in your face and microphones. How do you feel? What are you going to do? What do you want to say to the public? And I was quite emotional having just won it and realizing I didn't know at that point that it was by that much. But there's a clip that they used on their Instagram channel of me just saying, please come and see me on tour. I will wait after my show to meet as many of you that want to come and say hi. And if we're allowed to hug, I will hug every single one of you to say thank you for voting for me. And I'm really excited to do that, to meet the public, because my tour will be the first time that I've done a show that people have come to see me. Up until now, shows that whether it's a cruise ship where the audience are obviously already there, or I'm part of another show, I'm supporting somebody, or I'm part of a variety show, or it's a charity event. People have never really bought a ticket just to come and see me. So that's as overwhelming as that is. It's very exciting, and I'm going to take as long as it takes just to meet everybody afterwards. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, one final thing I do want to ask, you mentioned that in your show, you're going to be talking about some backstage stuff, that kind of things. Is there anything that you could tell us quite funny that you remember from your experience on Britain's Got Talent that might have happened backstage or could involve the judges? Have you got anything that stands out as a funny moment that we wouldn't have seen?
Well, there were quite a few weird things. I think my audition, it's very weird. What you see on television is very far removed from what the actual experience of doing it. The little bit with Ant and Dec, which they did, they filmed so much stuff and they didn't use anything of me really before there was no interview backstage. There was no me sitting on a box. They use that for a lot of people. I didn't know why. It's just, that they're making a TV program at the end of the day. I've always told myself it's a TV show before it's a talent show. Back in the olden days, we had things like Opportunity Knocks and New Faces, and they were very much about talent shows. If you did well on those, you were guaranteed not even win it. If you just did well on it, you'd get your own TV show. You'd go on the chat shows. And I think what Simon Cowell does is he's brought back variety shows, which is amazing, and he's done it very cleverly because none of us get paid. So he's got these great variety shows of all these performers, the good and the bad. So once you realize he's making a TV show first and then it's a talent show, then it's about you. So I was quite prepared for things to be edited and whatever, and they did edit my audition song. That they cut three jokes out of the song for the broadcast and edited it to make it quite emotional with all the shots of my family and stuff. So what you actually saw, what I'm going to perform in my tour, you'll get the whole version of the song. And the same for my semi as well. Actually, that's probably the biggest story, which I wasn't meant to tell anybody, but I told somebody in the press and it got out. So I made it. But my semi-final song, What About My Mum and Dad? I had a huge brain fart in the middle of the song and forgot 3 verses. Just jumped 3 verses of the song, cut half. And of course, we'd done rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal. Every photo and camera shot had been synced up to the song that I'd done in rehearsals, and in the actual performance I just changed the whole thing and cut 3 verses out. To this day, I mean, I apologized afterwards to the producers and the directors because luckily it was a pre-record, it wasn't actually being broadcast live, so they had a chance to sort of try and fix it to an extent. But they must have been having kittens in the gallery above the stage when they, what's he done, he's jumped from there to there. But and I was devastated. I mean, when it happened, you know, you could have got a bus ticket between the cheeks of my bum. I mean, everything just clenched because I'd screwed up, you know, and this was my biggest opportunity, and I was convinced that everybody would know, and of course nobody did know because it was an original song. So to all intents and purposes, nobody realised that I'd forgotten literally half the song. So again, on my tour, I'll perform the whole thing, and you'll get to hear it as it was meant to be done. Yeah.
Well, just talking to you in this interview, I think there's going to be a lot of funny stories and things that we don't know that you know happened on the show that we're going to hear about. And I just want to say thank you so much for giving me your time today for the interview. And you know, you are a really deserved winner. Something about you this year, it just felt right. You know, your performances, the semi-final and final in particular, and I think you know you deserve that landslide victory. So I'll be coming to see you in tour, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Make sure you come and say hi after the show.
Thank you. That's amazing.